We're here for part 10 of a 52-part series as we journey week by week through The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday and Stephen Hanselman. As I have said before, this is hopefully to supplement the text, not to replace it, because I think that there are so many valuable things in this text that I'm not going through on the channel on this in this series. 366 days in a 52-part series, that would be simply too much. I'm just picking out the things that I would like to highlight and that I think I can tie together in some through line. Pardon me, I'm not sure what's going on with my voice, but the first day that I want to highlight here is March 8th, which is subtitled, "Don't Unintentionally Hand Over Your Freedom." The quote for this day comes to us from Epictetus. "If a person gave away your body to some passerby, you'd be furious, and yet you hand over your mind to anyone who comes along, so that they may abuse you, leaving it disturbed and troubled. Have you no shame in that? Have you no shame in that?" And the entry from our authors is as such. We instinctively, we protect our physical selves. We don't let people touch us, push us around, control where we go. But when it comes to the mind, we're less disciplined. We hand it over willingly to social media, to television, to what other people are doing, thinking, or saying. We sit down to work, and the next thing you know, we're browsing the internet. We sit down with our families, but within minutes, we have our phones out. We sit down peacefully in a park, but instead of looking inward, we're judging people as they pass by. We don't even know that we're doing this. We don't realize how much waste is in it. How inefficient and distracted it makes us. And what's worse, no one is making this happen. It's totally self-inflicted. To the Stoics, this is an abomination. They know that the world can control our bodies. We can be thrown in jail or tossed about by the weather, but the mind, that's ours. We must protect it. Maintain control over your mind and perceptions, they'd say. It's your most prized possession. Now, on the surface, a lot of that is fairly obvious, right? Something to which we have to have our concentration drawn from time to time. It is useful to be reminded of it. But one little subtext in here that is useful for me, that I find useful to remind myself of as often as possible, is that you can care the world for someone, but you can't give a damn what they think about you. The moment that you start to care what someone else thinks about you, you grant them possession of your free will. It becomes their will. And a lot of times what happens is, a lot of times, where this comes from is parentage. Someone loves their parents, and they think that means that I have to be the person my parents want me to be. And it's easy to give into that sort of relationship because parents are seen as authoritative. When you knew no better in the world, they got you to where you wanted to be. They got you to where you are. They got you to school. They got you probably to and from your first job, depending on when you started working. All of these things, when you needed an answer, you went to them. They were your authority figures. It is easy to give in to believing because my parent was an authority figure and I care what my parent thinks. Therefore, I have to reflect the person that my parents want me to be. But the best way, because on some level that says, I care about you. But the best way to care about someone is to care what that person thinks about themselves. Not what that person thinks about you. That person is not, no matter who it is, parent or not, that person is not with you on a moment-to-moment basis. Maybe you're in a long-term relationship. That person sees you every day, not every moment. Now, if you are in a relationship, is it important what that person thinks of you? Yeah, it's important. But the relationship part of that is more predicated upon you caring what that person thinks of themselves. Because if that person cares what you think of yourself, then their care in that relationship will not be towards molding you into what they want, but allowing you to further become who you are. Spoken like a true bachelor, right? But this is important, I think. This is why a lot of relationships don't work out. People care more about what their significant other thinks of them than how their significant other feels about themselves. If that relationship is mutually respectful, any relationship, boss, parent, sibling, relationship, if the respect in that dynamic is equal, both parties will care what the other person thinks about themselves, not what the other party thinks of them. That's basically all I've got to say on that part. March 9th reads as such. The subtitle is Find the Right Scene. The first quote, there are two quotes here. The first quote comes to us from Epictetus. Above all, keep a close watch on this, that you are never so tied to your former acquaintances and friends that you are pulled down to their level. If you don't, you'll be ruined. You must choose whether to be loved by these friends and remain the same person, or to become a better person at the cost of those friends. If you try to have it both ways, you will neither make progress nor keep what you once had. The second quote comes to us from Musonius Rufus, the first I'm hearing of Musonius. It's a good name to hold on to, maybe for your firstborn, Musonius. In quoting Theognis of Megara lectures, I know exactly what I'm talking about. The quote is, "From good people you'll learn good, but if you mingle with the bad, you'll destroy such soul as you had." Let me try that one more time. From Musonius. "From good people you'll learn good, but if you mingle with the bad, you'll destroy such soul as you had." And the quote, the entry from our authors, Jim Rohn's widely quoted line is, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." James Altucher, I know exactly what I'm talking about. James advises young writers and entrepreneurs to find their, quote, scene, end quote. A group of peers who push them to be better. Your father might have given you a warning when he saw you spending time with some bad kids. Remember, you become like your friends. One of Goethe's maxims captures it better. Tell me with whom you consort, and I will tell you who you are. Consciously consider whom you allow into your life. Not like some snobby elitist, but like someone who is trying to cultivate the best life possible. Ask yourself about the people you meet and spend time with. Are they making me better? Do they encourage me to push forward and hold me accountable? Or do they drag me down to their level? Now, with this in mind, ask the most important question. Should I spend more or less time with these folks? The second part of Goethe's quote tells us the stakes of this choice. If I know how you spend your time, he said, then I know what might become of you. This is an integral piece of advice. If you've never heard of Jim Rohn, Jim, R-O-H-N, Jim Rohn, you should look him up on YouTube. Had some seriously insightful things to say. One of these, I wouldn't quite call him a motivational speaker. I would call him, well, yeah, a motivational speaker, but a lot of his phrases are more useful than "you can do it." A lot of the stuff that he said was more insightful and aimed towards sort of resetting you. There's a lot of Jim Rohn quotes that once you hear them, if you remember them, if you reapply them, if you say them back to yourself, they can sort of recenter you. I think so cultivate. Cultivating the people with whom you spend time. That is a great word, cultivate, for what is being talked about here. So here's the question, though. I would love to spend a Sunday evening rolling up to Elon Musk's place and learning some stuff. Is that going to happen? No. So you sort of have, here's another cliche, here's another motivational saying cliche. You have to be the change you wish to see in the world. If you're simply the thermometer in the room, you will be subject to whatever is going on in there. However, if you are part of the weather-making apparatus, then you can help other people in the way that you hope to be helped by them. Someone who is constantly picking other people up will always have people around them to pick them up. Part of the conundrum here, to me, where do creative people find these people? If all of your time is spent creating, writing, making music, all of these things, any of these creative processes, where do you find other people to spend time with? So I think that there's a more meta level to this. There's a 50,000-foot view to this that is every bit as applicable as the 5 people with whom you spend the most time. But that's a very good rule. All of us have someone in our lives that we probably shouldn't be spending all that much time with. But should we cut them out of our lives? Or should we spend a little bit more of our energy trying to bring them up so that they might be one of these people with whom we should spend that time? What is the level of investment of that relationship worth, depending on the person? One of the practical ways that I try to manage this in my life, so the reason I'm presenting this, I've got 3 days back to back to back here that I think are the 3 days worth presenting in this week of reading. And all of them overlap so much that my portion of this video, the part where you're getting Adrian's thoughts, could be copy and pasted into any of the other days. So the last entry from our authors, we got the bit about, about our mind. We handed over willingly to social media, to television, to movies. We have to cultivate our media just in the same way that we cultivate the people with whom we spend time. So on this level, you don't pick the people you work with, probably. Not all the time, at least. You can't cut them out of your life. Maybe you've got a bad boss. That's almost undoubtedly one of the people with whom you spend the most time in any given week. bad boss, bad coworker, whoever it is that you see. Do you owe it to yourself to minimize them in your life or to try to maximize them in their own life? We don't always choose our company. We can always, almost always, pretty much always, choose our media. We can always, almost always, pretty much always, choose our primary agents of socialization. So for me, one thing that I've done within the past couple of years, most of my media comes from YouTube. This is it, YouTube. And I do have notifications set on a whole lot of channels. Now, one of the things I used to do, and I don't know why. I don't know where this came from. I don't know why I started doing it. I don't know why I thought it was a good idea. I would watch Philip DeFranco. No idea why. Guy's kind of a dum-dum. Guy's sort of a middle school lunch table. Now, if you watch Philip DeFranco, I'm not berating you. Philip DeFranco has every right to make the content that he makes. But it's middle school lunchroom drama. That's it. That's pretty much it. I don't know why, but I would casually watch him 3-4 times a week. Cut that off. I had to cut that off. Because it was just mind-numbing drama. I don't know why I was doing it. That was when I started setting notifications for different channels. Who is the person that I want to become? Do I want to be spending this time with Philip DeFranco on a 4-day-a-week basis? It's like a 16, 20-minute video. But do I want to be doing that in the first place? If I walked in the room on me watching Philip DeFranco, I'd probably be pretty pissed off at myself. What are you doing? You've got stuff to do. Instead, you're watching internet drama stuff. So I picked stuff that I wanted to learn about and did some research on some channels, watched some videos from them, and set their videos to notification. I've got science stuff. I've got business stuff. I've got stock stuff. I've got literature stuff. I've got all this different stuff on notifications. And now, no, I don't watch every video that comes into my subscription feed for sure. Subscribe to way too many channels for that. I don't watch all of the videos that come into my notification feed. I've got too many for that. But I try to always ask myself, before I click on a video, why will I be spending this time in this fashion? And it has greatly aided me. So one of the things I do is when I'm walking miles or when I'm at work, I'll have an earbud in. While I'm at work or while I'm doing some exercise, I'll be learning about different things. I think that has helped me greatly. There's a myriad of philosophy channels on YouTube that come out with videos fairly regularly, history channels that come out with videos fairly regularly. And just by setting those videos to notification, as opposed to searching up Philip DeFranco or whatever it is. I don't mean to pick on Philip DeFranco. I don't even know if he's still making videos, to be honest. The guy was so successful, he could probably have stopped years ago. But by cultivating that media that comes in passively, not even the act of reading stuff, not even as active as this, just the passive stuff, I think has greatly helped me, has greatly aided me on a day-to-day basis. Now, the next day is March 10th. Find yourself a Cato. The quote comes to us from Seneca in Moral Letters. We can remove most sins if we have a witness standing by as we are about to go wrong. The soul should have someone it can respect, by whose example it can make its inner sanctum more inviolable. Happy is the person who can improve others, not only when present, but even in their thoughts. I think this is pretty obvious why I picked this day as well. Look at the central message to all of these things. Try harder to be good. Try harder to be productive. Try harder to help other people be good and productive. And surround yourself with good and productive people. The entry from our writer is as such. Cato the Younger, I'm not sure. Cato the Younger, a Roman politician best known for his self-discipline and for his heroic defense of the Republic against Julius Caesar, appears constantly throughout Stoic literature, which is interesting because he didn't write anything down. He taught no classes. He gave no interviews. His bold and brave example is what made him such a commonly cited and quoted philosopher. Seneca tells us that we should each have our own Cato. I know exactly what I'm talking about. A great and noble person we can allow into our minds and use to guide our actions, even when they're not physically present. The economist Adam Smith had a similar concept, which he called the indifferent spectator. It doesn't have to be an actual person, just someone who, like Seneca said, can stand witness to our behavior. Someone who can quietly admonish us if we are considering doing something lazy, dishonest, or selfish. And if we have to do it right, and if we do it right, and live our lives in such a way, perhaps we can serve as someone else's Cato, or indifferent spectator, when they need it. So, like our author advises here, we might not have this person on hand. This might not be someone that we actually know in our personal lives. Just like we might not be able to surround ourselves with 5 people whom we wish to reflect in some way. But do you remember those wristbands? What would Jesus do, right? That was one of these moments. What would Cato do? What would Elon Musk do? What would Andrew Jackson do? Right? All of these types of questions. The trick, I think, to this is to have this paradigm with whom we might consult. That paradigm has to live in our own head. What would Jesus do works because people who follow that type of thought are familiar with the Jesus character, the character of Jesus. If you have this paradigm, and this paradigm is not in your personal life, basically all you're doing is moralizing. What would Elon Musk do? I don't know. He would land a rocket ship, but that's not going to help me when I'm at work at the Five and Dime and some Karen from down the street is screaming because we don't carry cigarettes. Not going to help me. What would Elon do? Elon would tell her to get lost. Elon would tell her to shove it. But this moral paradigm, in this moral paradigm, Elon wouldn't have to work overnights at the Five and Dime on the corner. So, it is incumbent upon me to be bigger than the situation. That's all I have for this episode. The 10th in a 52-part series, journeying week by week through the Daily Stoic. And I hope to have you back next week for the next episode.